What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And week 3 of New York Giants OTAs have officially begun. The Giants were back on the practice field yesterday afternoon. It was a closed practice, so the media wasn't there to post any clips or highlights or anything, but the practice report did have some key takeaways and some more kind of discoveries about the Giants defense in particular. Now, there were some highlights made by the offense, some touchdowns thrown by Dart, from Russ, from Jameis Winston, of course. Eric Gray, I think, had a few touchdowns for whatever that's worth. But in today's episode, we want to do a takeaway a video about OTAs, but really focus in on the secondary, which we've talked a lot about in all of these OTA updates and takeaway episodes that I've done. We've talked about Dane Belton, and we're going to talk about him again today, but really want to talk about the cornerback position because we've seen some standout moments from guys like Paulson Adebo, but Cor'Dale Flott has slowly become the guy to talk about here in the Giants secondary throughout the course of OTAs. So we're going to go ahead and dive into him as well and why we think he could be pushing for a position battle by the time training camp rolls around. So focusing in on the secondary today, I do have some notes as well to share about the pass rush, which has looked really good at training camp as well. And then I want to kind of open it up, Alex, to a larger conversation about the way the defense is kind of kicking the offense's ass so far through OTAs. But before we dive into all that, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And we'll start off with Tyler Nubin. I know this is a player that you've been excited about. He's had a couple of interceptions here and there throughout OTAs. You know, I saw you made a post on Twitter today and you were talking about why you're so excited for him. So shed some light on that. How are you feeling? And how are you feeling about Tyler Nubin specifically?
I'm feeling pretty good, man. I mean, this defense has the capacity to be a really good unit. We talked about it the other day a little bit, but Tyler Nubin's really cool because signing Javon Holland to this 3-year deal, and by the way, that 3-year deal, I want to say it again about Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo. Those deals are really, really, really good for the Giants. Holland coming off a bad year, Adebo coming off that broken leg. Of course, there are some concerns about just them being back to the normal selves, but they're both like 25 years old. So I think the probability is they'll bounce back. These contracts have outs after the second season with like 3 or 4 million in dead money. You don't really get players like that with those types of contracts. I know they gave a little bit more guaranteed to probably execute it, and they were able to get them coming off a little bit of down years for them, both of them. So, you know, they had some leverage at their disposal, but really good work by Joe Shane on these contracts, in my opinion. And I think that, you know, they spent nearly $100 million in total, but, you know, if one of those guys don't pan out after the second season, or if they're both balling out, you just keep them. So I think that that's pretty cool too. I definitely think that, you know, for the Giants, this defense has so much potential, and the young players too. You know, you mentioned Dane Belton, and, you know, we'll talk about him first and foremost. Dane Belton is like this player that has a ton of potential, but we really haven't seen it just yet. You know what I mean? Like, we haven't seen him do it just yet consistently. He's had his moments. I would say he's kind of one of those guys that's just in the right place at the right time. You know, sometimes interceptions fall into his lap, and that's a skill. You know, that's kind of a good skill to have on defense, be in the right place at the right time. So, you know, depth is critical. We've complained for years about how the Giants have no depth, and what do you know? They might actually have some this year, which is a rarity. And Dane Belton balling out right now. You know, just the roster in general really is up against him because Tyler Nubin gets that strong safety job now. And I think that the Giants are finally going in the direction, Anthony. They're finally steering in the direction where they're starting to put players in positions to maximize their strengths. Nubin specifically, you know, as you mentioned, and I tweeted about it before, this is a guy that they've put into a position where he can be a great run stopper at strong safety. Like, he can use that instinct that he had last year. He was excellent against the run. He was one of the Giants' best run defenders last season. In coverage, that's where he had some problems. But, you know, I think that you have Dane Belton who could play some strong safety, can play some free safety. That depth is critical. And if something happens to Javon Holland, you could just kick Nubin back into free safety and have Dane Belton play strong safety, or vice versa. You know, you have got a lot of versatility there now, but Nubin specifically, they said, you know, why are we going to force him to play free safety when he showed that he could be maybe one of the better strong safeties in the division pretty quickly? And I love that he was a captain at Minnesota. Like, he's got a lot of really good intangible traits. This is a guy that I think could be a breakout candidate in 2025, just simply because they took his best strength and they said, yeah, like, we're going to lean into that strength. That is what good teams do. They do not put square pegs into round holes. The Giants keep using that freaking phrase like over and over again every year, and then they completely ignore it. Like every single year, they use that phrase exactly verbatim, and then they completely ignore it and do the opposite thing. Finally, it feels to me like they got the message. They kind of are getting their own message. They're taking their own advice and saying, all right, you know what? Tyler Nubin, not that great in coverage last year, but excellent in the run. Let's put him in a place where he's a perfect fit, a perfect solution at strong safety. And I think he's an upgrade over Jason Pinnock.
Yeah, I think he's an upgrade in that regard as well. I can't say that they're not putting square pegs in the round holes because, as we talked about recently, the development of Jalen Hyatt has been really questionable. So, but focusing in back on the secondary, you are right. I like the way that they're optimizing Nubin's role in this defense. He's primed to be one of the two starting safeties in this defense alongside the big splash signing of Javon Holland. And I really like that duo. You mentioned Dane Belton. We'll get to him in a little bit. But focusing back in on OTA specifically, Alex, I'll read this quote from the practice report that the Giants posted. It says, the secondary is making things more difficult on the Giants receivers. Takeaways are up, and there are not a lot of easy catches to be had, even when contact is not allowed. This is good to see early in camp. Now, my takeaway from that is going to be less pessimistic than it could be, because I think you could read that and you could have some pretty severe reactions to it and kind of listen. What I'm trying to say is the offense is supposed to have an advantage in these drills, right, Alex? Like, it is 7-on-7s, it's 11-on-11s. We know that generally speaking, football and the rules of football cater towards the offense. When you're practicing and doing these drills, the offense should be scoring a lot of points. They should be getting out ahead early in OTAs and beating the defense. But in reality, it's been the opposite. The defense has been beating the offense consistently throughout OTAs. And again, I'm not going to have a severe reaction to it because I could get all doom and gloom and get concerned about the offense. But as I said in another recent update that we did, the offense is playing together all for the first time. It's a completely new and revamped quarterback room. They're debating a change at the play caller position. They have new skill position players. So the whole offense is changing its shape, which is why I'm fine with the growing pains on that end. But even still, in those 7-on-7s, in those 11-on-11s, the receivers have an advantage because there is no contact. So they should be gaining separation. But the fact that they aren't doesn't necessarily say that the receivers are playing poor to me, because we've seen that there's been some standout plays from Hyatt, from Slayton, and others. But rather, it really just tells me that this secondary is clamping down, that these guys are playing really well, that the coverage has been tight. And so, Alex, we've talked a lot about how the defensive line is going to be a major strength for this team. But also, of course, the New York Giants did pour a lot of assets into the secondary. It seems like through OTAs so far, we are seeing the investment in the defensive backfield really pay off. And I'm hoping that that continues into training camp, of course, then into the preseason and into the regular season. But I have to say, I am getting some excitement generated, generally speaking, about the secondary just by reading every single practice report and seeing that at least one or two or three defensive backs on some days are making some big splashy plays at OTAs. You know, how does that excite you? And what does that mean as we look ahead to training camp next month? Of course, when position battles and depth chart battles really start to shake out here, the secondary seems like it's got some really fierce competition in it.
Finally, I mean, we haven't had a secondary with this much talent in it since the days of DRC and Janoris Jenkins. You know what I mean? Like, it's been a minute. It's been quite a long time. So, you know, to have some veteran leadership there, to have some young upside, I still think Deonte Banks has tons of potential we haven't even sniffed the surface on yet. The fact that these guys are coming up and making plays right now is a really good sign. And I think it's, you know, going to be even better because of the pass rush, right? Like, the best secondary is a pass rush. And I think that that's going to be fun to watch for the Giants in 2025 as like Abdul Carter and Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. It was kind of funny. Jackson Dart talking about the NFL speed. And he was like, there was like, I think it was some sort of read option or something like that. And he was like, Brian Burns chased my ass down. I've like never seen speed like that before. So he's starting to get a glimpse of how fast he has to make decisions. And I think that that's pretty like good, right? That's what we wanted. We did not want Jackson Dart stepping in as a starter week one, having just said something like that. Like, he is not up to speed. He is not ready for that type of kind of momentum and that type of challenge, I'd say. But the fact that the Giants pass rushers are providing that much excitement and upside right now, and they're doing a lot of good stuff and winning a lot of their battles, it's going to help the secondary a lot, and it's going to help them make those big plays, rush quarterbacks, rush decision-making, tipped passes. Like, how many opportunities will the Giants have to create turnovers because of this pass rush? That might be partially why. I mean, I know they can't hit the quarterback, but the fact that they're doing it really without the pass rush playing much of a part in practice because they can't touch the quarterback, they get the extra time to make those throws. The fact that the secondary is making those plays anyway, I think is even more encouraging, because if you add the element of a pass rush there, who knows what the upside could be? Who knows how great they could be? So I don't know. That's kind of an interesting perspective on the situation.
It is an interesting perspective. And, I'm glad that you brought that up because, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, I have a little bit of info to kind of throw in here about the defensive line. So I will do that before we return to the discussion on the secondary, because you're right. To highlight that quote from Jackson Dart, indicating that the speed of the NFL is new to him, and that's a surprise. And we all knew that was going to be the case. But I like that he specifically highlighted Brian Burns. And I'll say this. Every single practice report, Alex, Brian Burns shows up in it. Like, every single time the Giants post something on their website about an OTA practice, one way or another, Brian Burns is in that article, whether he's getting would-be sacks, pressures, batted passes at the line of scrimmage, whatever it is. In fact, at yesterday's practice, both him and Abdul Carter had would-be sacks. Abdul Carter had several moments where he was in the backfield, according to the practice report. Micah McFadden had a couple plays in the backfield as well. So the pressure's been getting there also. I know it's an unpadded practice, so it's kind of hard to simulate pass rush in general, but the pressure is getting through. Those pass rushers are living up to the hype so far. McFadden also had a pass breakup that broke up a would-be touchdown from Jackson Dart to Darius Slayton. So that also you could take away from that, which is why I love these practice reports, that Jackson Dart was playing with the starters on that play because McFadden was making the play against him and he was throwing to Slayton. So a couple boxes to check there. A, Jackson Dart did get reps with the starters yesterday, which is an encouraging sign. And B, you're getting Micah McFadden in the backfield making plays and also making plays in coverage. But focusing back in on that pass rush that you mentioned, Alex, Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, seemingly getting a would-be sack again. They can't actually touch the quarterbacks and there's no pads on, but would-be sack in almost every single practice report. The only takeaway that I can have for you is just excitement, right? Like, just hype, because seeing Abdul Carter's name show up in every report is something that just tells me Giants got a real deal. I'm so excited for the season to start, and I can't wait to watch this potential defensive rookie of the year candidate get on the football field for the Giants and start making some plays. Now, the only thing that I will say to this is, while we see Burns and Carter show up in every single practice report, unfortunately, Thibodeau shows up a little bit more sparingly. Again, it's only OTAs and there's no pad, so I don't really care. But it's just a takeaway that I've had that I figured I'd throw out there. But yeah, some great points about the pass rush. And Alex, seeing that Micah McFadden just keeps showing up in the practice report, can we get that damn extension signed already?
Micah McFadden, I agree. I think that he should be extended. And the reason, you kind of laid out there is I don't think he's really reached his potential just yet. And Bobby Okereke has, he has 1 year left on his deal, I believe. So once he's gone, you're going to turn over the whole linebacker core. Yeah, also, like, how much do you think McFadden really costs? Not that much. If he has a really good year, yeah, his price could go up considerably. But right now, like, you're talking about a guy that's probably, like, linebackers aren't paid that much, maybe like $5 or $6 million a year. Like, I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. And he's been around for a minute. He has no problems in the locker room. He is a tough son of a gun. And I love the fact that he just wreaks havoc in defensive backfields. Like, if you have Brian Burns, right? Dexter Lawrence, Darius Alexander, Kayvon, Abdul Carter, you have all these guys. And then you have Micah McFadden, who's very capable of doing a lot of good stuff behind the line of scrimmage. Like, you're in a good spot. Like, you have a lot of playmakers on defense, and he also forces a lot of fumbles. What kind of contract would you give him? I think, like, I give him like a 3-year, $15 million deal, and I feel like that might be reasonable.
I think he probably pushes more towards 6 to 8 million rather than 5 million. But either way, I'd pay him because if he plays well this season, he's going to be pushing over $10 million per season for sure. So again, I just think the Giants should get that extension done sooner rather than later. But let's dive back into the secondary and talk about a couple more key takeaways. Number one, Dane Belton. We're going to get to him, and then we will have that conversation about Cor'Dale Flott that I keep hinting at. But Dane Belton had another interception at yesterday's practice. It was called back, but just the fact that he was in the right place at the right time, like you said earlier, Alex, that's a skill. He's always in the right place at the right time. And once again, he was. Again, it was taken away, but he still made the play. Now, that makes 4 interceptions, 3 official since this one was called back, but 4 interceptions in 7 total practices. The guy cannot stop making plays at OTAs. And keep in mind, this is a player, Alex, who in his NFL career so far with limited snaps has 5 total interceptions, 1 forced fumble, and 4 fumble recoveries across 49 games without ever playing more than 42% of snaps in a single season. Guy's got a nose for the football, even during the regular season. Like you kind of said it earlier, could we see it show up more? I think it shows up all the time. Like he's constantly around the ball and making plays. He's just not on the field enough. And unfortunately for him, he is playing in a crowded secondary. So he's probably not going to get on the field in excess of those 42% of snaps again this season. But I'll tell you what, Alex, the way that he's played throughout OTAs, if he continues this going into training camp and he still looks this good and he continues to just turn the ball over and make plays, the Giants need to find a creative way to get him on the field at the same time as Jevon Holland and Tyler Nubin this season, because I don't want to see a really talented player simply go to waste because they feel they have more talented players ahead of him on the depth chart. A good defensive coordinator will find ways to get them all on the field at the same time. Shane Bowen did mention that that's his plan for Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau. Well, one of these reporters, next time they're in the building, they need to ask him about Tyler Nubin, Jevon Holland, and Dane Belton, because Dane Belton has played better than I think anyone at Giants OTAs so far. He has been the standout of the spring. If that carries into the summer, he needs to get some significant snaps on the field this upcoming season. And so again, Shane Bowen, please get creative, find a way to get all 3 of those talented safeties that you have at your disposal on the field at the same time, especially when you consider the fact that Dane Belton is the guy who creates turnovers. And that was the New York Giants' biggest struggle on the defensive side of the ball last season, was getting the ball taken away from the offense. So now you got a kid who's clearly adept at getting his hands on the football, who is proficient at forcing those turnovers. Find a creative way to get him on the field. I really do believe, I know it's only OTAs and it's early and it's spring, but I do believe that Dane Belton maybe hasn't earned regular season playing time with his performance in OTAs, but he's definitely earned, I think, first team reps when training camp rolls around. And I think that he's earned the right to fight for a regular role in this defense. So Dane Belton, I can't say enough good things about him. He's been the true standout of OTAs, and I just can't wait to see him get on the practice field with the pads, start forcing some more turnovers when we get to training camp at the end of July.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that they could get him involved, like on the field, is 3rd and longs, right? Like that's kind of a situation I would take Micah McFadden off the field because he can't be really trusted in coverage. And I think that you leave Bobby Okereke out there, obviously, and you can trust your pass rush. Like if it's 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15, even 3rd and 10, you might even think about just having Tyler Nubin, Dane Belton, and Jevon Holland out there, and then just rushing your normal pass rush, because like they're going to be good enough to win on their own. So I'm pretty excited about like the versatility it allows them to have on the back end. In the past, they would have to send so many extra blitzers because they couldn't provide a pass rush with their front 4. Now they can do that with ease. So I feel like they're going to have so much flexibility with adding an extra defensive back there and clogging the lanes if they see a look that they like. Just taking those reads away, filling the gaps, and obviously Belton, right place, right time kind of guy. 3rd and long, they're trying to pick up a first down. You might be able to get a couple of interceptions that way. And Micah McFadden's not very good in coverage, so you might want to have a better option like that on the field. So I could see 3rd and longs being a way for them to get all 3 safeties on the field at the same time. Really, even 2nd and long, I wouldn't even hate. Some teams will try to run the ball there, but even so, like Dane Belton and Nubin are good run stoppers. So like I'm not totally concerned about that. So yeah, and at the same time, Abdul Carter, he's going to be fun to watch too. They might use it. They're going to use him as an off-ball linebacker at times. Like he's going to be a weapon. So like there's so much versatility, man. Abdul Carter off ball, Kayvon and Brian Burns at edge rusher is going to be one of the most dangerous trios that you could ask for. Like, we talk about Micah McFadden being able to shoot gaps and like do those types of things. Abdul Carter is going to be so good at shooting those gaps and not missing those tackles, but wrapping up those tackles because of his speed and strength. Like, man, literally, if I was Shane Bowen, I'd be watching Dallas Cowboys highlights right now of how they used Micah Parsons. Like that's literally what the Giants should be doing, copy and pasting. Because like that's the type of player that Abdul Carter could be. If they don't copycat that, like they would be out of their mind.
It's a copycat league, so you're 100% right. If they're not copycatting, they're falling behind. They need to study film on Micah Parsons and figure out how to apply those takeaways to Abdul Carter. But Yeah, man, I can't wait to watch that pass rush get to work. It's going to be really fun. But again, going back into the secondary, the last thing that I do want to mention before we wrap up the discussion on the takeaways from OTA number 7, Cor'Dale Flott. He had an interception yesterday. He's received some praise recently from defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. And last week, this was from Ryan Dunleavy of the New York Post on June 5th, Cor'Dale Flott was in at CB2. There were no 7-on-7 or 11-on-11 drills for Deonte Banks that day. So I'm assuming he was probably banged up in some way and just needed a rest day, and that's totally fine. But Cor'Dale Flott getting in there as a CB2 and has shown up in the practice report quite a bit. Had an interception in the back of the end zone in zone coverage yesterday. Just making a lot of plays. He's had several pass breakups, a couple of interceptions, and has earned some first team reps. I'm wondering, Alex, do we have a position battle forming here? I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves or get carried away with it because, it is only OTAs. And so if Flott's making plays now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's earning starting reps come training camp. However, it's more of a question of how does Deonte Banks look? Because we don't know that. And if Deonte Banks isn't playing well, but meanwhile Flott is potentially outperforming him, could this open up into a position battle once we get to training camp? I do wonder. Because, listen, Banks, again, we had this discussion about Jair Alexander yesterday, and I said I'm the biggest Deonte Banks fan that any of you know or listen to talk about the New York Giants, right? Like, I love Banks, and I think that he is going to have the breakout season. But what if he doesn't, right? Like, what if I'm wrong? And what if the Giants are sitting here thinking, what if we are wrong about Banks? We do need some sort of a backup plan. And that's why I think at the end of the day, it's just wise for them to be incorporating Cor'Dale Flott into some first team reps and getting him with the starters and competing against the best of the very best throughout OTAs and definitely into training camp, just as a protection to hedge your bet essentially on Deonte Banks. If he doesn't take that step forward, if he has effort problems again this season, if he does flame out in year 3 of his career, who is that next man up? It's going to be Cor'Dale Flott. And I think we can all say it's encouraging to see that he's playing well through OTAs. Now we just need to see how both of those two players, Banks and Flott, perform when we do get to training camp next month. But I wonder, Alex, could a position battle start up? Do you feel like this is Deonte Banks' job to lose, or do you really think that it is something that could become completely open to a position battle once we get to training camp?
I don't really see why not. You know what I mean? Deonte Banks did not prove to me last year with his effort, with his body language, and with his production that he is the locked-in starter at CB2. Do I want him to win that job? 100%. Do I think he will? Yeah, sure. But I think it would be absolutely malpractice for the Giants to walk into this season and say, hey, buddy, you sucked last year. You gave up on this team. You did not put in the effort. You were benched multiple times. But here's the starting CB2 job. It would be in nobody's best interest to do that if you're the Giants. If the Giants want to be a real team with really good coaching, they need to go into this training camp this summer telling Deonte Banks, buddy, last year is unacceptable. You got to earn your right to play on this team. This defense could be one of the best in the league. If you want to be a part of it, you have to play like you're part of it, So go earn it. Go capture that job. You are a third-year player. You have a bright future ahead of you. Go show the world why. You know what I mean? So if I was the Giants right now, I'd be telling Cor'Dale Flott, buddy, play your ass off. You could win that job. Like that position is open for the taking. That is nobody's job right now to lose. Flott, if you want it, go earn it. Banks, if you want it, go earn it. Healthy competition, you gotta love it. There's nothing wrong with that. And again, neither of those two guys have earned anything. But Flott looked better than Banks last year. So I'll leave it at that. And I do think Flott is better suited for the outside because he's way too thin and way too lanky to be a slot corner. And we have Andrew Phillips there, so it doesn't matter anyway. So this is Flott's opportunity to win a job. And it's Deonte Banks' opportunity to rediscover, why he was a first-round pick and really apply that athleticism and apply his talent because, he just took steps in the wrong direction. His confidence was shot. But yeah, to answer your question roundabout, there's no reason why the Giants should be hand delivering a starting position to Deonte Banks right now. Even though we both think he has a lot of upside, he needs to earn it.
Agreed. And I think that having Cor'Dale Flott take some of those CB2 reps and, considering how well Flott did play at certain times last year, he wasn't perfect, but still developing. But I think that it's good to push Deonte Banks kind of encourage him, feel the pressure, get competitive, get that confidence back, and fight to retain that job that you were given last year. Now it's not going to be given to you. Now you got to fight to keep it. And Cor'Dale Flott is definitely going to be fighting to try and take it. Keep in mind, this is a contract year for Cor'Dale Flott. He has nothing to lose and everything to gain. And he did play well at times down the stretch last season, especially when Banks was taken out of the lineup due to injuries or lack of effort. So I kind of like Flott. And I said this earlier this week in one of the discussions, or last week rather, in one of the discussions that we had, Alex. This 2022 draft class, a lot of them are really starting to take shape, kind of starting to take those steps forward and progress. And Cor'Dale Flott is a prime example of that, a guy who, as a rookie, struggled a lot. Year 2 struggled a lot, but maybe a little bit less. Year 3 started to turn it around, and now going into year 4, could he finally be hitting his stride? I feel the same way about several of those guys from that 2022 NFL draft class, and hoping that I'm right about it and that some of these guys do take those big steps forward, Cor'Dale Flott, of course, included. So very interested to see how that battle does progress once we get into training camp. I think it's going to be one that we really should keep an eye on, and really just going to be keeping a close eye on the secondary in general. But Alex, I have a fun question for you. This is a surprise. I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I thought of this randomly yesterday afternoon and wrote it down. So another little fun segment as we wrap up today's episode. This is, again, kind of pulling a playbook page out of the Rich Eisen show. They do the What's More Likely segment, and we did one of those in a recent live stream, but I'm going to go with a would you rather, right? So who would you rather have at quarterback to save your life, Alex? Let me set the scene for you. Tomorrow is a football game. I'm not saying after training camp, just tomorrow is a football game. New York Giants versus, let's call it, the Philadelphia Eagles. If the Giants win, you keep your life. If not, you're gone. I'm sorry, buddy. Russell Wilson is hurt. Can't play the last 2 minutes. 2-minute drill for the New York Giants. Who is stepping in? Tommy DeVito or Jackson Dart? Down by 4 points. Have to score a touchdown tomorrow to save your life. Who's the pick?
Jackson Dart. Easily.
You're out of your mind. Tommy DeVito. Jackson Dart has never played an NFL game.
Dude, this entire okay, neither of these guys are good options right now. Let's make it very clear. Neither of these two players are good options. One of them can throw the deep ball, though. And I do think that in this instance, I'm taking the chance with Darius Slayton or Neighbors just outrunning their guy and Dart having the better deep ball and just laying it up there. That's all I'm betting on right now. That is the reason I'd pick Dart. Tommy DeVito, I would call it more of like a not even an al dente noodle. His arm is just a freaking noodle, man. Like, he can't sling the rock that far. Like, he's got some decent velocity short, minor intermediate range, but deep ball does not exist for him. I'm simply going like, we need a Hail Mary, and I'm going to trust Jackson Dart to deliver that one there.
Okay, I guess that's fine and sound logic, but I don't know. 2-minute drill tomorrow on June 11th. I think I'm taking the guy who's actually won some NFL games, come from behind games. So I'm taking the Cutlet boy, but you go ahead. It's your funeral at the end of the day. So there's a fun question for you to wrap this one up. But that's pretty much it. Pretty good discussion on OTAs, New York Giants, giving you guys the update on the secondary in particular focus. But of course, we're going to continue to hit you guys with updates and takeaways from OTAs throughout the rest of this week. This is the final week of OTAs practice. Then I believe it's next week, the mandatory mini camp just for the veterans for the New York Giants. And then after that, the long break, the long silence before training camp. That's going to be tough to get through, but we will get through it with daily content here on Fireside Giants, no doubt. So make sure you do stay tuned. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. Listen to Apple or Spotify. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
Perfect.